Good evening, televiewers. We are very sorry for the late start of today's edition of the program. We are indeed sorry. We want to say this evening we are going to be discussing two topics, looking at a recorded voice circulating on social media announcing the ban of services Presbyterian Church in Cameroon, in Bali, also calling for the resignation of the moderator of the church as well as the parish or congregational pastor for Bali. We also are going to be looking at back to schools for the academic year 2021 and 2022, effectively kicked off in Cameroon today. We're going to be looking at it, especially the worries raised by parents as they prepare their children to engage in this school year. We are going to be discussing this with our panelists who are seated already in the house. We are welcoming Ndiwum Emmanuel. He is a teacher and also active member of the civil society. Good evening, welcome.
Yes, good evening, Mr. Leo, and good evening to my co-panelists. I take this evening to greet a special family in Yaoundé, whom all plus their children are special fans of Madame Mbang Godika and the children who are glued to the TV set now watching my media prime. How I wish is going to be a fruitful exchange this evening. Thank you for the invitation.
Okay, Tamfu Jones is also in the house with us. He is the Secretary General of the Moderator Party, but also a teacher. Good evening, welcome.
Good evening, Mr. Leo. It's a privilege to be here today to see how we discuss the things that are making news in the nation and to see how we will contribute only to portion to nation building.
Okay. Yes. We're also in the company of Jarvis. He is a journalist working with my Media Prime TV. Good evening, welcome, Jarvis.
Good evening, Mr. Kum. Good evening to the Bishop of Boya. Good evening to Yaoundé. Good evening to Bamenda.
We are also in the company of the kangaroo man. They call him Tayong Fah Elvis. He is in the house with us, Deputy Communication Secretary for the Cameroon Renaissance Movement. He has also had the opportunity to teach our brothers and sisters out there, especially in Boya. Good evening, welcome.
Thanks very much, Kum Leonard. Greetings to the people of Gunoko Village, Royal Majesty Dr. from Key Waters, and also of others from the Paramountcy or the Fondom of Womdenburg, we will call out Barakwe, and I have a host of others, including Royal Majesty, the Fond of Baba One. It's a pleasure being here today. I think they'll be contributing our own modest ideas to put things straight the way they ought to be. Okay, we are going to kickstart with this back to school. I'll start with you, Ndiwum Emmanuel. The fever, we've not felt the fever as compared to previous years where before school starts you see uniforms and books and almost everything. Things went pretty silent this time around.
Yes, Mr. Leo. You know, I happen to have crisscrossed the town of Douala, and the back to school effervescence was sleeping. The euphoria that usually characterized the back to school period, I don't know whether I should say it went to sleep, it is sleeping, or it got missing somewhere. But to paint the picture clear, it's like as days are going by, people are getting into more financial difficulties, because if you happen to contact a few people around, you will discover that each of them has a story to tell. You will know that one parent has 5 children, but today was school resumption. He had not been able to register one single child because of financial quagmires. And we all know that with the coming of the corona last year, if at all corona do exist, actually put the backs of some economic operators to the wall, and people are still like trying to fine-tune strategies to reposition themselves to be in position of financial authority. So it is partly because of this difficulty, and of course partly because of some of the conditions that have been made attached to the school conditions. May I mention here, without fear of being criticized, that in most government schools now, they no longer need the registration of the child first. They need the 50,000 francs bribe first. When the 50,000 francs bribe gets into the office, your child's place is secured. A registration can now come later, which is a terrible paradox.
Which is a terrible paradox. Now, Tamfu Jones, you live in Douala, and we've seen reports of schools, especially in urban towns, where some persons are expected to pay more than 50,000 francs. Others are required to pay the sum of 100,000 francs before the child can secure a place in some of these schools.
I think Mr. Ndiwum just wanted to standardize the sum, because actually the sum is 100,000 francs, and it is non-negotiable in the urban areas like Douala. It's regrettable to understand that these guys have put in place a strategy to extort money from parents without any fear of anybody. So they do what they call competitive examinations into these schools when the children are about to enter into Form 1 after passing their first school living certificate and the common entrance. The question that comes to my mind is, if a child passes a common entrance, it means that he is already eligible to enter into any government secondary school of his or her choice. But since schools like maybe a couple of the Daido, maybe the GBHS Daido, which so many children will love to be students of that school, so many of them apply to go to that school. And for that reason, because the number is always exorbitant, the authorities of the school now make sure that they reduce the number by bringing into place a competitive examination. And when the children write this competitive examination, they are now, when the competition are corrected, they now expect the teacher, the parents, to come in and do what they should do, the 100,000 francs, before their child is admitted. When you don't give this 100,000 francs, they say that their child did not succeed in the competitive examination that was to take their child to Form 1. So that is the mafia that justifies this 100,000, that when you pay, you are not even giving a receipt. You are giving no invoice. It means that the money goes into coffers we are yet to know. And there's this PTA levy that we are also questioning, because every year in year out, PTA levy are paid. Principals will come to school and they are managing over 100 million of the PTA levy. They take it and invest in their businesses. They put it in banks and make profit out of that money. And every year they squeeze out money from parents. COVID-19 came, as Mr. Ndiwum said earlier. It came and it brought the economy down. Monies were sent to our country so that it could help to alleviate our living conditions, so that people will not suffer a lot from the consequences of the pandemic. But some group of people siphon the money, put in their pockets, and they are going scot-free without anybody saying anything. And Mr. Leo, with this school resumption again, there's this 2,000 francs also that we are hearing that is going around for the cleaning of the campuses. We begin to ask our questions. If we should pay 2,000 francs for children for the campus to be clean, would our children still be cleaning? What would be the punishment that will be given to the children who are studying in this campus? Because we have been paying money for hygiene and sanitation where we are paying taxes, but yet on Thursday we have to lock our shops clean for cleaning. We pay money for cleaning, and yet we go and do the cleaning ourselves. Then where is the money we are paying going to? So okay. I think that there are so many things that this government should do, and I'm calling on I was hoping that Madam Nalova Lyonga this year will come out and talk about these complaints that we have been complaining for the past years when it comes to some of these principles, because it is not everywhere, that make sure that they squeeze the least kobo that they can squeeze from parents around this nation.
Okay. Now, let's look at what is happening. We are talking about the fact that children or parents are asked to pay money before they get a place for their children in schools, but also we're talking about very exorbitant PTA levies requested or asked from most of our parents, especially in towns like Douala and Yaoundé. How do we justify that when we know that there is very little addition or investments when we talk about infrastructure that is supposed to be done in some of these schools because they are already in well-fenced campuses?
The issue is as old as the word old itself in terms of the evil practice. I think that we have made mention of these issues time and again, and this time around I continue with the campaign. A handful of principals last time, even the Mugo division said we're blowing hot air, but at least they chilled somewhere along the line when we visited their schools. And this time it will not be different. You see, while beginning, I will be appreciating the senior divisional officer for Njan Division, Mr. Fowang Lawrence, who joins me in that fight. One thing is for sure, he has said clean and clear, no PTA level in Njan Division. And he made his point clear, that we are at a crossroad where parents are finding it difficult to even educate their children. So top on the agenda is for children to get to school and not to be built PTA, in which case most of the fee or the PTA whatever is always even above the homologated school fee rate put in place by the ministry. For example, if it's government school, now first cycle is 7,500, second cycle is 10,000. Now, I am saying this because I will be on the field. As I said last time, like the case of GHS Limbe, where you discovered that children were paying 18,500 francs for PTA levy. There's no construction going on in the school campus. All classes are already there. And you see how the movement goes on. That's why I said clearly that if all SGOs were acting as the SGO in Jan Division, divisional delegates and regional delegates who surely eat from this deal because they stay quiet despite the trumpet will blow in, day out, means that to some extent they are accomplices to the crime. I repeat, because if we blow this air and they go there, no, GHS Limbe, no PTA, because of this and that. Now look at the thing like what my friend Tamfu was just saying, that you realize that these people in the first place, what does the law says about PTA? The law says that at the end, before the end of every year, a PTA General Assembly is convened, whereby the Parents Teachers Association, in line with the executives, they look at the worries of the school, and they look at what is pending. It is in this case that they vote the budget based on the exigencies required by the school. How many General Assemblies have been held since 5 years ago? So the executives in their small mafia group, with the principals, I said surely in connivance with the divisional delegate and the regional, because they stay quiet and mute, and they know these processes are going on. In Limbe, when I went there, I had receipts of those who paid the PTA fee. I did not want to get the names out, but this time it will be different. So,
yeah, but,
at the end of it,
did you forbid? Was there any note that forbids the payment of PTA levies in Limbe?
Mr. Leo, they violated the law of PTA collection. What does the law says? Before you collect a PTA, there is a General Assembly that sits.
Yeah, but
they violated.
Yeah,
I can still stand up now.
At least I'm sure in Limbe they collected what was agreed upon. What we have witnessed,
not agreed upon, Mr. Leo.
What we have witnessed in Douala and Yaoundé, in most of the schools, we have seen these amounts move from 30 to almost 50 and beyond. How do we explain this?
The issue here, I'm sure Ndiwum raised it, is coming from the fact that there is no check and balance and effective coordination from the level of the regional delegation, divisional delegation, and also from the level of the ministry itself. Because remember that it's a chain, and the divisional delegates are subjected to, are in charge of the different principals in their area of command. Let's take, for example, Fako. Fako has a divisional delegate of education, and Maih has a divisional delegate of education. Now, all of these divisional delegates, they are reporting to the regional delegate of secondary education, who reports now to the Minister of Secondary Education. We have this practice ongoing because people are not doing their job. They are instead focused on the things that they should not give more attention to. For example, you ask a question, why do we have this exorbitant fee in centers, in schools that are already well constructed, in schools that already...
I'm talking about PTA. I'm saying that we are going to come to fees. We are talking about PTAs. In many schools in Douala and Yaoundé, many parents are asking how you move the PTA fees from 30, 25 to 50.
That's what I'm
almost
saying.
Doubling the amount.
That's what I'm saying. That,
and you talked about the principal sort of who decides how much PTA should be.
PTA,
that should come from
the General Assembly.
From the
General Assembly. It's the General Assembly. From when I started going to school, we understand that it's the General Assembly that sits before its school year goes to an end. Correct. And they sit and decide, okay, these are the needs of this school. What are the needs? The General Assembly of the parents, yes. Of the parents, and they have the representative of the teachers alongside with the principal. Now they will sit together and look at this school year is going to an end. It's coming to an end. What are the things that will be done for next school year? Maybe we project that we may have an increase in enrollment for this next academic year. Maybe we realize that the children in this school had problems with the restrooms. Maybe we project that next year the computer lab is supposed to be functional. Now they will sit and decide the total. They will draft a budget, an estimate of their expenditure and their revenue for the next year. And on that budget, they will say, okay, if we're expecting 50 children this year, therefore, and we need a project for, let's say, 2 million. On these 50 children this year, let's divide by the 2 million by the 50 and see how we can recharge this money. Then they will vote a budget, and they will vote a levy which will be applied for the next academic year. But this is not the case, because parents are not being given the full right to come to these PTA meetings. First, how often do the principals and the Parents Teacher Association itself, the few representative calls for this PTA General Assembly? Very few. You bear in mind that in Douala especially, you rarely see parents go for PTA meetings. There are 3 reasons involved. One, because of the busy nature that we now have the world, where many parents will feel like they don't care to go to these meetings. That's why you see sometimes these fees are levied. They say, I'm too busy to go, and too busy, it was 50,000. But to the few who are not busy, they will now go, and that's why you see this problem is coming. That's why you see where this problem is coming from. But the reason there to Mr. Leo, I'm struggling to paint here, is that the divisional delegates of education has a role to police this institution when issues as such are raised, because it is their responsibility to ensure that the republic is protected in all facets, especially in the educational domain. But they don't take that responsibility, and it is sad to see that parents themselves too don't take that responsibility, because it's not just the schools, Mr. Leo. The parents themselves, they are happy with the situation. I must say this, because if they are not happy with the situation, you will rarely see where these parents will come together and echo with one voice. We've seen where parents are not happy, they stage a peaceful demonstration at schools. We have seen where parents are not happy, they go and confront the divisional delegates of education. But in the case of those in the north, in the littoral region, we don't see this move. This move are not there. People tend to operate along what we call action personnel. It's at the level of individual level. But if the parents can come together and say, okay, enough of this, let's project or get the ministry aware of this. Let's say they are not aware, officially aware, I think something will be done. And the journalists too have a role to play in this, because FI is doing a good job by going around and policing all these schools. And if we could have the media, as we are talking about it, which is helping the situation, if we could have the media going to these schools, doing their findings and asking questions, I'm sure that it will help shape the narrative, and it will help, reduce the rate at which this levy is being collected. If I talked about the issue of Limbe, you bear with me that is not the case as of this year, because it changed. A principal met me in GBHS Moya and said she watched a program that Fah was talking about PTA, and Fah was talking about a certain amount, and there was pressure at the level of the delegation of education because Fah talked about it. And now if the journalists themselves can take it upon themselves to say, okay, let's police these people and not just look at just the crisis of the Northwest and Southwest, let's look at other issues, I'm sure it will go a long way to help. Okay,
it will go a long way to help. Ndiwum, Emmanuel, we are talking about this, but like he says, these monies are exorbitant. Parents have paid and are crying. Why are they forced? Is it not the parents that should sit down and decide how much they should pay?
Well, Mr. Leo, don't forget to know that this evening we are still in Cameroon. It's not like we are in another universe or another planet. You see, in Cameroon, there is a way to push people to do what they don't even like and cry after because it is well calculated. Imagine that today was the seat. Yesterday, you were asked 50,000, else your child will not get a place in the classroom. And you are in Douala, knowing the population that is in Douala, and you had that 50,000 francs. Like I said here, they take the 50,000 bribe first before you ever come back with the official registration. You'll be bound to do it and cry. But I blame the parents because the parents are going the way our so-called opposition parties have gone in Cameroon. They see things going wrong. They only cry, they shout aloud. Voila. Instead of constituting themselves to go out to the street massively, take their rights into their hands, they are crying behind. Mr. Leo,
why go to the street? Why not mobilize within the school? No, go to the school, say Bilen the do. Go to the school and say, we are not paying this amount. Yeah. We are the parents. We agree that each parent is supposed to pay 25.
Yes, that is another way out. Yeah. And I'm also proposing another way out that may shout louder than the one that just going to Lycée Daido. Mr. Leo, we cannot imagine that in the 21st century, where other countries of the world are trying to lure their citizens to learn, Cameroon is pushing away its own citizens from learning by imposing exorbitant fees that do not exist. And worst of all is that there has never been accountability for these PTA fees. Let me give you a few examples. If you go to GTC Motef in Fundong subdivision, that school is 9 years old. They have just 2 government teachers. And all the structures there, I stand to be corrected, were constructed by the community. Immediately the government took over and increased the PTA in that school. No structure has been realized till date, and I have proofs.
Yeah, but then who do you blame? You blame the PTA president and yes.
And the parents.
Yes, I am coming. I will tell you why I'm saying so. It is a way. I will tell you at the end. If you go to GSS Konene, they have 3 government teachers for 11 years today. They only benefit from the high school children that have graduated in the modern schools around to come back and teach as PTA teacher, and they are paid 20,000 francs. With the complicity of some of the presidents of these PTEs. So we should not blame only the government. It is a win-win situation. I don't want to call names. If they are watching, they should take note because I know them. Some of them, like Tamai said a while ago, that the parents were supposed to come together with the teachers association, decipher what to be done. You will be surprised to hear that there are some PTA meetings that takes place behind the closed doors and other parents are never aware. Only the gurus involved come there and they leave with the envelopes. And as they go out, I am a witness to some women who came asking in one school, it is already second term ending. We have not heard anything about PTA. And a teacher, a surveillant general said a PTA meeting held here. And these women were dumbfounded. So it is a complicity of, we are in a system where we don't even have to, I'm afraid that even Jesus Christ was to operate in the system of Cameroon, he will become corrupt. Look at GS, Sodikombo in Douala 5. The pioneer headmistress there had to borrow money to try to roof a house that was rented. They were operating in a rented apartment for 5 years, whereas there was PTA. And she almost ran into problem because she wanted to claim honesty, to find out from the divisional delegate what was happening with the PTA of her school. Do you know that she was transferred immediately here in Douala? Immediately. And she had to save her head by surrendering the documents of that school to an interim headmaster before another headmaster was sent to that school. You see that it is something well drafted by those who benefit from the system to make sure that those who are poor in Cameroon continue to be poor, while those who are rich continue to be rich. So it's a systematic problem. We cannot have schools in a far north region of Cameroon where our children are seated under trees, birds are watching them, mocking at them as they are learning. Whereas we have PTA levies being paid every year. We lack teachers in schools. Whereas this PTA, if well calculated, you will know that even without government funds, teachers will be well paid in Cameroon. But it has been the contrary. Who cares Cameroon? In all aspects, in sports, in education. Like somebody said, if you want to kill the citizens of a country, kill the educational sector of that country. And it seems Cameroon's report card in that direction to kill the education of this country is very blue. They're having 99% good in that direction. They have to sit up.
Yes, school is the motive or the objective for operating schools, institutions of learning, is heralded actually to wanting to move Cameroonians and not necessarily to make profit. But isn't it the contrary that we see schools actually playing the roles of very, very profitable ventures?
We're in a system whereby people have to buy their ways through entrance examinations into institution of training. And when they buy their way, when you invest money in every business, you have to recover the money and make some profit. But these guys, as selfish as they are, while making profit, they become Oliver Twist, always asking for more. Always asking for more profit. They are never filled, just like the policemen who are never tired of collecting 500 francs. Even if you have all the documents, they are struggling to take something from you. Yeah, that's what is happening in schools. In the schools.
Yeah, when I'm talking about very, very profitable ventures, I'm trying to look at the fee structures in Cameroon.
I'm coming there. So it's because of corruption. So these people, I'm talking of the government teachers, that's their own case. So now for the private schools, there's laissez-faire. The government has gone on holidays. They don't control the private schools. The education of a country is supposed to be managed by the government. So the private schools just come in as a support. Normally the government was supposed to be controlling the private schools so that they toe the line. But the government has allowed the private school to operate in under a free atmosphere. And a black man will walk straight when you have a whip behind him. See, as now they're operating freely. They do as they want, nobody questions. You will go to schools, there are no toilets, the schools are operating. Every year they will come and tell us that they have shot this number of schools, bring us a very long list. At the end of the day, the schools are still in existence and still functioning. So you see that the chain is very long, beginning from the top right down. When you start to try to see how you will dismantle it,
at the long run, your head can even fall off. As Ndiwum just spoke about a certain principal who finally left the thing and disappeared. So that's how Cameroon functions. You see in the private schools, the proprietors and the proprietresses, they are out for money making. They increase school fees, the government says nothing. They don't register that their teachers at the National Insurance Fund, whereas the government says that every company, every institution, every business should register its workers to the CIMP, so that at retirement they will be able to benefit from the insurance. From the insurance scheme, but they don't do it, and nobody says anything. When the controllers come to the field, they are given a brown envelope behind closed doors, and the teachers are not even permitted to come near those controllers so that they can even whisper anything into their ears. The controllers to shy away from the teachers, so that it will not be that they heard of the sufferings of the teachers and do not do anything. They take their brown envelope and go back and play a deaf ear. And the government to in place is doing nothing, because every day we sit here and we say the same thing and nothing is changing. It means that when these guys take this money, they give some envelopes to cover some mouths somewhere so that actions will not be taken against them. And now we are calling on the authorities that if we just consider that they do not know about all these happenings. Now they should know that in the private schools, school fees are increased, but they are still paying the teachers 35,000 francs, 40,000 francs, and 50,000 francs in this same Douala that we live. And the school fees ranges from 80,000 per children right up to 250,000. But the 250, and the teachers are not well paid, and there's nobody to fight for them. I think that the government should set a standardized pay package for everybody. If you have a degree, they should pay you at least this amount. You have advanced level, they should pay you at least this amount. You have ordinary level, they should pay you at least this amount. If there is, then it's on paper. Because I have never seen it. I have seen in companies where they are paying a master degree holder 75,000, and the driver who is an illiterate who has never seen the front wall of a class is receiving more than 25,000. See the paradox. So what the government has a lot to do. If they are lacking information, I think that they should come closer to us. We will give them information.
You have worked with some schools in the Southwest region. I don't know whether the Northwest also or Douala, but
Douala and the Southwest.
And the Southwest. But when you look at the fee structures, can we say that the fees are meant to facilitate the education of an average Cameroonian, and is there need for this structure to be harmonized at least? Because there are schools where parents are asked to pay 1 million francs CFA to have secondary school education in Cameroon.
Yeah, but normally the system needs to be harmonized. And as I said, it's a whole kangaroo system, because the man who runs his own school has his own pay package that he gives to a particular quarter so that it permits him function the way he functions. You know, it's a very kangaroo system. They know what I'm talking about. And I think that if they hear now, we need a harmonized system, because if you go, for example, I have taught at College of Hope Arts and Science. I have taught equally standard bilingual and all the like, also bilingual even school in Limbe and all those kind of schools. But now, how did I find myself in journalism? Because when I saw the kangaroo system, it was not in line with what I had envisaged. And so you realize that proprietors made their money at the detriment of the poor teachers, who are the ones imparting the knowledge and getting the children to pay the school fees and sit in class. Now, look at it, for example. When we look at all of these issues, realize that in a real system, the government is supposed to have checks and balances. Now, how do you explain? I taught in a school in Boya. That school receives subvention of not less than 8 million per year. And what's the subvention intended? It is for you to get the money and better up the living conditions of your teachers. Now, when subvention comes, the man keeps the things aside and tells us that, you know, things are tough. They pay September when school is starting, because you need to teach so that more children hear that teaching is going on in this school very well, and they come. That's how they took us for slaves. They know, the proprietors, they are hearing me, because there are also many to quit teaching. Now, when you are there, September, October, they don't continue to pay, because children are still paying fee. Those who have gone to government schools and have not successfully come back, so they get the echoes of this man in religious study, this man in philosophy, Mr. Kum said, Mr. this and that, Mr. Are Bate and all the like. So they move following those names when they have not succeeded in the normal government schools. Now, when this issue comes in, they will pay, and then after December now, they start galloping. You come now after teaching, after a local 35,000 they were supposed to give you, they say, but just hold 15,000 francs, you notice that they are gone. Before you know it, at the end of the time, they deceive you, you know you are part of this school, before you know it, you are filling the pocket for 30 when you say you never feel. Now you are filling the cup for a staff meeting, before you know it, they give you drinks. I said, no, just hold on. Now this Friday, come on Monday and collect your paper. On Monday you have to come, nobody is on campus. Boss are nowhere to be found. You have to wait for 3 months, holiday period, to come back. So look at it critically. Now, the main issues of the whole kangaroo state education system. You have to take note. Point number 1. If you don't know how it goes, let me remind you, because I have taught and I've always been on the field. I got something Jarvis said, maybe one of the panelists, how could the parents are the cause because they are supposed to at least raise an alarm. That's correct. Education authority. These principals put parents at a tight corner. When you come to say admission, all the classes are full. When they are not full.
Yes.
Now, how do you expect a parent to start striking on the street when they told him that admission has closed because the classes are full? Whereas they are not full. Now they have intermediaries. They are not the principals. Surveillance generals, vice principals. These are the guys who play the mafia. Listen to me very well. Oh. I know the mafia.
Secretaries.
And the secretaries. So when you come now, they'll tell you no, admission has closed. You sometimes see the right on the door. Admission closed to all the classes. Why is it not even closed? So that at the third corner now, you see every reason to look for them and give you whatever money they want. So that you cannot blame them for collecting the money because you can say admission is closed and you still want your child to go in for that school. So you pass through the secretaries who collect and say, I'm not sure people will accept, let me just take. Maybe accept, I don't know. And they give you exorbitant. So this is the mafia that goes on. Now, in the course of the PTA, one of my findings, a principal told me in one of the schools in Kumba that they are collecting because they need to pay teachers, they need to pay all this. I told him, principal, you lie. Why? Because the government has redeployed teachers during this crisis. Those who were in Kombone Mission, those who were in Bonge, they push some of them to those schools that are functional, like GBHS, Kumba, Station, CAS, and all the like. And the same case is in Fako. Yeah. Some schools, like that function in the BLM and all the like, you have what they call regional transfer. That redeploys them to where they see that there are many students. So, the issue of student of teacher is cancelled. If a PTA president, who is a mafia man with a principal, tells you that we are collecting money because we need to pay PTA teachers, it's a lie. Those PTA teachers you find there are those who come to replace those who have disappeared into the diaspora. And they are being paid to sit in for them. And the schools takes cover behind them and says we have PTA. If you go to Balonga School, they have not enough teachers. Because even somebody in Munya was bad, most of the teachers in Munya, Ekona, Muyuka were transferred over to where it was safer. You get the point. So, if you go to some areas even, you see that in Bamenda even, the rural areas in Bafut, no teacher were deployed to Bamenda town. So the issue of of teachers, so when these guys collect this money, where is the mafia? In the General Assembly, the law states you are supposed to decide based on what your needs. But do you know that in the General Assembly, you are supposed to give a balance sheet? Go to Baliga Grammar School, Moniko, how many times they cut parents down and say we collected 15 million last year. We have paid these casual workers, secretaries for this amount. And the worst is that the secretaries are paid 9 months. Mr. Kum, not 11 months, not 12, 9 months.
Yeah, for Bilingual Grammar School, Boya, I think at the time, Madame Lois Ebenye was principal. I followed up what
I remember that
I was working very closely with the PTA president. There are structures constructed there. Also followed up when she was principal, I think it was GBHS Limbe. Yes, because she left Limbe for Boya. There are very giant structures constructed by the PTA.
Very good. My problem here is not the structure, Mr. Leo, it's the balance sheet. How much did you collect? How many PTA teachers are you paying, which is supposed to be known in that General Assembly?
But the problem,
so at the end of it now,
the problem in the Southwest and Northwest actually, should students be requested to pay PTA?
Not at all. That's the issue, Mr. Leo. Because at this time, because where we are now, the government is instead clamoring for these children to go to school, since as some of them have stayed in their resting areas without going to school. So when a child comes now, most of them are IDPs. I said there are 2 types of displacement. That we call internal displacement, which is interregional, and then there is which is within the region. There's displacement which cuts across the region. Now there's a pull factor of migration. Those who are in Sabongari, they moved to the respective divisional head office like in Nkambe. Now, others who could not manage health there, they moved to the regional headquarters, which is in Bamenda. Just like others lived into the areas, they moved to Kombone Mission, Kukoboma, they came to Kumba. Now, some who don't find it comfortable move from Kumba to Boya. and Tiko Limbe. Now look at the push factor now. In this case, we realize that in the course of this movement, many are not living in their own houses. Either are living with an auntie, an uncle, or they are squatting 5, 8, 10 of them in a particular single room. These are scenarios that are operating. The ministers should go on the ground and do these findings and let me confirm to them what I'm talking. So in this case, when you come, imagine that the school fees is 10,000 francs, at the end you end up paying 30,000 francs. I don't want to call it a rap because people might say maybe the money is trickling somewhere. I'm talking about the areas where you don't even find the money. But the question is, when you don't have a harmonized system, PTA in Douala, 100. The last time we were at GHS Bikoko, their own was clear, 100,000 francs. There's another school after Bikoko, 50,000 francs towards the toll gate there. You start asking yourself, but with all of this sum, was it right for them to collect? And this is the worst thing. We're talking about balance sheet. When they collect for all these years, you come there, in the case you said that I know about it is correct. When you come there, computers have been bought early long by 1 PTA fee. If you want to buy 10 computers, they collect PTA for 10 years and buy 10 computers. It's a network of mafia. But where is my worry? When divisional delegates and regional delegates stay quiet, they become an accomplice. I enjoined senior divisional officers because I am sure the divisional delegate for second division in Indian is dumbfounded because the boss has overruled that no PTA in my area of jurisdiction. If the SO of FACO says no PTA, regional delegates will not force the PTA because the boss as administrative authority has realized that there are many IDPs in the area who are begging to go to school and the means are not there. And then you come now and inflict PTA onto them and you say because you need to pay PTA. This is where the mafia goes on. I will be on the ground, as I said. I am working with the SO for Ndian. Other SOs, if you follow me, fine. If you don't follow me, we will continue the race. The team and the ball is rolling. We begin visit in schools unprecedented. Mungo division, when we went there, at least there was some a little bit of order. So the principals bet on us, we understand, we'll not do it again, don't take it on air and all the like. I said, but it's abnormal. It means you know what you were doing in the Mungo division. You understand? I cannot come and tell me don't side. In some schools in FACO, when they head out a journalist, those of them, sometimes in the schools during this period, they install surveillance cameras in their offices. It's clear because of insecurity. The moment they see me already at the secretariat, no, tell that judge to go and come because I am busy. And I went and came back 3, 4 times. I will not be calling them. But this time, if you don't receive me, as I collect a PTA receipt of a student, I put it on to your minister to know that things are wrong.
Good evening, Mr. Liu. The Kangaroo Man is on track. Truly, he has been on the field. Wilfred is writing from Limbe. Greetings, Mr. Liu and the very objective panelists. While we talk of what is being done with PTA fees, we should bear in mind that the government has never fully provided most schools with teachers. Hence, the school authority is bound to employ part-time teachers, and wages of such teachers are paid from the PTA funds. That makes about 75% of these funds. Pajon is writing from Limbe. I'm sure they stopped the calls. Presently, I'm having a PTA receipt of 20,000 francs from GTHS Mbonjo in Limbe for this school year. Okay, yes, those are the things. Greetings, Mr. Liu, and special greetings to Ndiwum, please. The essence of competitive exams into Form 1 is to ensure that the students to-be is capable and did not fraud or bribe their first school leaving certificate. Why are they focusing only on government schools when it's worse in private schools? Presbyterian schools pay 20K for computer fees, but go and check the computer labs, just to mention an example. Okay, Ayaba Carlson is writing. I will
visit them, there's no bother.
Is writing from Yaoundé. Good evening, Mr. Liu. I'm BBK writing from Kribi. What my elders are saying is the truth. I'm a victim of that publicly. The principals will say war victims won't have a problem, but when you come, they will say you should pay for a bench. I wonder if the students who were in the school were standing before copying notes. It's terrible. Okay, BBK from Kribi, good evening to you. Yes, not too good situation for some of Now, Emil writing from Jotin says, Mr. Leo, good evening, and to your panelists. In fact, Mr. Ndiwum is a great guy. He has facts on the ground, and I like his analysis. Okay. Daisy writing from Kumba is asking what's happening because Kumba does not have electricity. Good evening to you, Daisy Pilo. If you are neutral in situations of injustice, you have chosen the side of the oppressor. The government knows what is happening. Pilo is writing from Kumba. Pilo, I don't know what you're writing about. Is it in relation to what we are discussing? Good evening, Mr. Liu, and all the members of the panel. I love your program. Keep up. Please, there is also something that is going on in many schools. I don't get when a student who is attending the same school that he or she was in the last year is still being asked for registration as if he's a new student. Njeno Armstrong is writing from Yaoundé. I don't get it. I myself, I have seen this. Yeah. How do we register every day? Every year.
You have a registration 1,000, like this is the facts I got on the ground.
No, 20. My children.
Yeah. No.
My children
20,000, correct.
20,000 to register.
And then they tell you that you have a form. All students, you fill a form. That's 2,000. For all students, 1,000. New students is 2,000. Now, these monies are unaccounted for. For forms, photocopy, you see, just fill their names.
Yeah, but how do you private schools? They collect 20,000 for the registration every year.
I think if we should go through my WhatsApp messages, you will see me telling one of the officials of my children's
school that I will not pay any registration. The children have been there for over 3 years, and I should not be paying registration every year. I registered the children. They are already registered children in that school. If I should pay registration, then it's for me to move to another school. I cannot be in the same school, and I am registering every year. It's just like you get married to a wife, pay her bride price, and every year you have to go and pay bride price. It is nonsense.
Sometimes let's get situations may differ. The issue with registration is to confirm that that child is not changing school and is not going somewhere else. The fee may be a problem, but however, it is always been normal that each year, especially at the secondary schools or primary school, your registration is to say that, okay, my children are coming back to this same school in this capacity. No, I say I buy your view, or maybe the fee is too much. The fee is too much. But sometimes
they're supposed to be begging the people to bring back their children to the school.
We have not refused. No. See, the issue is we have not refused that registration in itself is good. However, they have explained, some schools have explained this theory that the reason is because parents oftentimes don't bring their children to that same school, and you feel like maybe you have already projected, and especially the private school, you have done a budget, knowing that, okay, these are the number of students you have for this class, and these are the equipment you have to procure. Now, if this,
what is the logic?
That's a wrong management logic. Very wrong management logic.
I'm explaining their logic now.
And then in doing that, from the customer, they are supposed to be cajoling.
Please. My question to you is simple. What justifies a registration of
that is the question
every school year?
It's a bad practice, but based on what some of the teachers or the principals told me, is that the reason is because they want to confirm, is to secure a placement for your child, because there are other pupils or students that are coming into that school each year. So it's to secure their placement.
Jarvis, do you pay registration without fees?
You can pay registration without fees, yes. But sometimes they say this fee is to ensure, for example, running costs of the school. Before you pay fees, sometimes a parent, it will take, like, say, let's say 2 months before a parent even pay these fees. Now we have some running costs.
You are struggling to compare what is happening in the university where you work.
I'm not talking about primary. No, I'm talking about the same primary school, private schools.
Because going by the logic you are saying, it is the form that somebody comes to buy, to purchase. We are talking about children who are in primary school. His child is, for 3 years, is in a primary school, and every year is expected to pay a registration fee of 25,000 francs before paying the fees. What for?
the 25,000 VAT was supposed to be an advancement of the
school fees.
And then you say that it is registration. After that, you start telling me to pay first installment before the first term runs out. That is stealing. Those things need to be dealt with.
I think there's something that you are misquoting me. I'm not saying it's good. I'm saying that that's the explanation they're giving. You asked a question about. You asked a question. No, you asked a question. No, excuse, Mr. Leo. You asked a question about why is it that we have exorbitant fee in schools, and whereas education is supposed to be to help the government in training for minds and heart, to shape minds and heart. Now the issue is simple. It's because first you cannot harmonize a fee structure if you are not harmonize the curriculum. You cannot, because curriculum differ. There are schools that gives different curriculum as compared to others. Let's take a private school, for example. There are some primary schools that have gone beyond in terms of entrepreneurship and other practice that they do. Now, there are some other primary schools who are just based on just who discover River Niger Mungu Park. Now, in these circumstances, you have a school that gives this kid an experience of the society, and you have a kid that gives this kid an experience of what used to go before.
It's what you are saying. Jarvis, is what you are saying here not dangerous to let the public understand that Cameroon does not have a harmonized curriculum? Are you saying when you know that all the children of in primary school are going to sit for a common exams? Those for HND,
there is what we call added value in primary schools.
Yeah, some schools provide extra
added value.
But don't say the curriculum is not harmonized.
No. Maybe I maybe expanded. But however, there's what we call an added value. Each school has that added value that they offer. For example, private schools lay private schools have an added value that they offer as compared to mission schools. So mission schools will have a private added value that they offer as compared to government schools. However, the government should However, what the government should do is that to say, okay, for private schools of this caliber, like they should be grouped. Private schools of this caliber, maybe this is their barem or their fee range from this amount to this amount. For this second government primary school, it range from this amount to this amount. But what we have is a situation where the government has not propped into this system to look at what is done at the level of the curriculum, the added value, and so on and so on. We have schools that don't pay CMPS. We have schools but they collect money, because in the barem of teachers, you see that it is deducted from their barem. A teacher will take a pay slip, even in private school, that teacher earns 40,000. In that pay slip, you will see the pay slip to see, you see that teacher earns about 60,000 net, but the amount of money that's given to him is 40,000. You will hear that this amount was paid to CMPS. But at the end of the day, if that teacher leaves that school, goes now on retirement, he or she does not have money in his CMPS account. Another issue that we have in mind is that the medical facilities that are put in place in schools, that they collect money from these medical facilities, but they are not being implemented. Another issue, you come now to look at the transport system. A school will tell you that we are going to transport your kid in this amount of bus and this amount of bus. That's why you are paying bus fee, you are paying this and that and that and that. After you money have paid this bus fee, you will discover that the services are not being offered in these schools, and the money ends up in the hands of these proprietors. So what the government should do at this point in time, in each academic year, they need to be an education board. That's what Cameroon needs, an education board that look at all the issues and grievances of last academic year and say that, okay, based on this academic year, these are the things that we may be proposing. I think it will help.
Ndiwum, now we have many students who are across the 8 other regions. I'm talking across the southwest and northwest regions where students are expected to go to school. How do we help them have easy access to schools if there is no control on how much is being taxed as school fees? People just you create your school, you decide how much to fix as school fees, and the fact that to get admission into most of these other public schools, you ask to bribe before you can have position. Should something not be done for students who are coming from the southwest and northwest regions into our schools across the nation, and then for those who decide to study back there?
Very good question, Mr. Leo. That question is a pointer to the fact that this government has not been willing to solve the Anglophone crisis. Because if we are talking today about the displacement of people, who were supposed to be studying in Northwest and Southwest, and some who have chosen between life and death to stay there and study. I think this was a time for the government to give a special touch to such people by creating an atmosphere or a condition where they could even say that those who have chosen to study back in Norway should not even pay school fee at all. Yeah. Those who have crossed over to the Mongo or the Yaoundé side, there should be a special team, I mean a physical team, not a team on paper, a physical team to take a census of all the children coming from the Northwest and the Southwest region, wherein the government will personally provide all their didactic materials, their learning materials needed by these children. That would have been a special touch that will not be forgotten in a hurry. But come to think of it, we have 3 ministries of education in Cameroon that are actually fruitless. I don't see the function of the basic education. I don't see the function of the secondary education. Neither do I see the function of the higher education in a little country like Cameroon. If all these problems, like you are saying, were supposed to be solved, these ministries are supposed to be dissolved.
They have the higher education.
Yes, they are supposed to be.
Therefore,
yes, they are supposed to be dissolved. If they are dissolved and we create an educational board, like Tamai said a while ago, with the Ministry of National Education, with its branches, you will discover that the bottlenecking that exists and that creates this friendly atmosphere for corruption and bribery that acts as fertilizer to that chain will be broken up. You see, the government is not willing to do anything, Mr. Leo. They are aware, because most of these people who carry out these acts are people who must have bought their way in.
Yeah, but
and they want to harvest or to recover what was used.
Yes, you say the government
is not willing,
does not have a good mind.
Fit.
Yes, towards our suffering brothers and sisters from the Southwest and other regions. Yes, granted, but we have many schools that are run under the church now.
The mission schools.
Yes.
In Douala, in Yaoundé, in Bafoussam and other places. We have schools that are run by individuals. If we say the government is bad, what is the difference that we are seeing from proprietors of private schools, and is there anything that they do as favor towards those coming from the Southwest and other schools?
Some of them do.
Okay.
Some of them do.
Okay.
I don't want to make publicity here. Why we are holding the government accountable is because our government is used to copying things from outside.
Okay.
Let the government copy the example of Ghana, where in Ghana the system of private and the public is harmonized in a way that private schools are paid not determined by the proprietors, not determined by the school owner. It is determined by the government. And the salaries are passing the same day that public salaries are passing. Yeah. Which means if I'm working in a private school and you are working in the public school, our salaries are passing the same. My school proprietor has no right in Ghana to pay me through an envelope. They have to pay me through a bank, censored by the government. Yeah. Cameroon government should copy good examples. They should not only go and copy fake examples of democracy and then bring in Transparency International to Cameroon, and then they cannot copy what is right. I think they should learn to copy from countries that are doing the right thing.
Okay. Good.
The government have the yam and the knife to call all the proprietors and all the mission schools, harmonize, put a particular sum that no school should pay below this amount. And it will work, Mr. Leo. The government is the police of the nation.
You are talking about paying teachers?
Payment of teachers and the using of the PTA fees as we are talking here today. If the government was solely involved on accountability, that is to say they can pay surprise visits to school, the inspector, the delegates, to find out this year Can we, before I give you the microphone, Mr. Leo,
but
remember another scam came up in the name of computers in schools. And monies were collected every year with no single computer lab in the school.
Some of the parents are watching us. We would really want to know more about how much is being charged in the different schools as far as our PTA is concerned. Are there some worries you want to share with us? Please call me after the program and then we can discuss. So in our next edition of our discussing back to school, especially how PTAs are being managed, we can also use what information you've given us. Good evening to all in the studio. I'm really happy about the topic of today. I also want to ask that what about the tissue issue? Okay, tissue, sitter, toilet, roll. They collect
of papers.
They collect from students every year. Some schools even collect it per term. I really think schools should include toilet tissue in their school budget. Vera is writing from Limbe. Good evening to you, Vera. Good evening, Mr. Liu. Despite this corrupt behavior in our secondary schools, in 2019, instructions were given to facilitate admissions for the IDP, and I succeeded to register a child approved by the regional delegate himself without spending any time. I believe Cameroonians can be honest if they really want to. Alex is writing from Douala. Yeah, Alex, thank you for sharing that information with us. Good evening, Mr. Liu. I am Walters from Boya. I really appreciate your efforts to educate the public on important issues. Education is the backbone of the economy and should be promoted. PTAs in government schools should be audited every quarter. Government schools should pay all dues by mobile money, even that of PTA levy. Some bursars collect 35,000 but give receipts for a lesser amount. Bursars should be replaced by accountants in all government schools, since all the money is paid into a bank account or mobile money account. Okay. Hello, Mr. Leo. Cameroon's loving people are in the dark, not only because of the regional governments that are being voted need to be first installed before tackling the PTA problems. Please, Kangaroo Man, expose those schools managers. Max Begani is writing from Dusseldorf in Germany. Good evening, Mr. Liu. Maybe Douala and other towns are better. In Yaoundé, the teachers, they tell you straight to your eyes that education is for the rich. By the way, we have IDP everywhere. If you don't choco, others will. Michelson is writing from Bamenda. I am Akenji Jude from Douala. I have been paying 30,000 francs each year as registration for my boy and 15,000 francs each year for my girl. Why is it so? Why do they have to register into the same school every year? If they want to be certain of the amount of students or pupils that will be attending the school during the year, why don't they make parents pay a certain portion of the school fees paid on the first day of the school year? Okay. Greetings from Limbe, Mr. Kum. I like your programs on my media prime. Tell the kangaroo system man to keep up. Mr. Bola is writing from Yaoundé. I like today's program. Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Bola. Good evening, Mr. Leo. Jackson from Yaoundé, the Kangaroo Man, is really speaking to the reality. How come CONAC exists, but these scenarios keep on happening? What is really the role of CONAC during the school periods? Extend my regards to the Kangaroo Man. Good evening, Mr. Liu. I like your program. Mr. Fah is correct and exactly on the point. The corruption is from top to bottom in Cameroon. The ministry needs to go to the field and stop all these malpractices. Okay. Mr. Yika is writing from Boya. Now, good evening, Mr. Leo. My brother is Brother Paul, writing in Limbe. I paid the sum of 32,000 francs in school here in Limbe, and a receipt was issued to me with a sum of 7,000 7,500 francs. I don't know how much the PTA is. When I asked the receipt for the PTA, nobody answered me. Please, can you send us the receipt? Tell us the school so that we should expose those things. Greetings to you all in the panel. I am called Maih Ansem. I'm writing from the United Arab Emirates. I just wish to ask that those funds that have been collected for the parents, where is the money kept? If it's meant for us of the school, then no problem. Your message is not clear. Good evening, Mr. Leo. Thank you for bringing this topic up. Can you believe that here in Bamenda, like in GBHS Bamenda, students pay 30,000 francs to 20,000 francs for PTA level? The minister must do something. Thanks. Johnson is writing from Bamenda. But these issues are so many. The corruption is very rife. People pay 50,000 francs. It's normal in Douala. Others pay 100,000 francs. Konak seemingly is not eyeing what is happening in our schools.
There are so many because of the corruption.
As we said earlier, it begins from up. It's not from down. Yeah. Because those people, when they take maybe the 30,000, if 5,000 francs goes to a particular person, 10,000 goes to a particular person, that means they share the money. They don't eat the money alone because they have to close mouth. If they don't close mouth, Konak will come on you. Maybe the ministries will also follow. Because how come that in Cameroon we have 4 ministries only for the educational sector, and yet the productivity is very low with so much lapses? So I think that the time has come for all the ministries to be harmonized, and we have one Ministry of Education, what is National Ministry of Education, as you said, Mr. Ndiwum.
National Education.
Yes, I think that would be better, because maybe the fact that there are 4 of them makes them to be confusing. At the end of the day, they don't know their functions. Because where we are now, it is said that the responsibility goes with control. If the government is giving subventions to schools, they have the right to be controlling those schools, and they can adopt the system that Mr. Ndiwum raised earlier, that is happening in Ghana, whereby the teachers of the private schools will be paid the same salary and on the same period like those of the government schools. That can be applicable. So I think that the government does not give these subventions the way they are supposed to give the subventions, because I asked questions in some schools, and I was told that when the subventions start coming from Ewane, before they reach the schools, the amount becomes so very small that it helps to do little or nothing, because it is chopped at different levels. When it reaches the school, maybe if they send maybe 6 million subvention, maybe it may end up reaching the school only 1 million. So you see that the government is not making things easy. I cannot say the government, some government authorities are not making things easy for the country, and we the parents are accomplices to that, because if every parent has stood up and said no, we are not going to pay this money, I think that it will end. But when there's this laissez-faire attitude that le Cameroon fait comment, what should we do is Cameroon, they continue in this act of 419 criminal actions, stealing people's money, and it will continue until the day we will stand up and say today is today, the end must come to this nonsense.
Just to add something he said, maybe Konak went round schools before this academic year started. I remember Konak was in Daidu to sensitize the administration, the school management. They went around government schools about the aspect of the things we are seeing today. They frowned against the practices that occurred last year. I remember my media prime covered the news about the Konak visit in Douala. However, it is now at the level of the parents to see that these measures
they report these things to
you cannot go to I'll give you an example. These guys are collecting this money with a batch of
I'll give you an example.
They're not ashamed of anything.
I'll give you an example. My university went to a government school. I'll give you an example. My university went to a government school to do what is known as an orientation to these students that are writing. We went with a series of books to one of the government schools. I will not call names. Books that we had donation, textbooks that will benefit these schools, will benefit the students that will write. Textbook worth, I think it was worth 500,000. And a principal told us that it is a government school that will not benefit him. that books will not benefit. We can go back with the books, but we can give him 50,000.
Imagine
that the money will go to his pocket. 2 schools in this Douala. But when we had textbooks that will be kept at the library for the impact of these same students, they told us that no, universities are coming and giving them money, so we must give them money for campaign. It now boils down to this, what I'm saying, that if parents themselves can stand up again and make their voice heard as one force, it will not stop it, but it will reduce it.
Okay, greetings to you and panelists, Mr. Liu. Once registered into Form 1, you are part of the school until Form 7 or till when you leave the school. You only pay fees. Ben is writing from Bamenda. It's a lesson to the Anglophones. They have abandoned their benefits and chose to send children to Francophone zones in the name of liberation. Hold what you have before asking for more. This one says, good evening. People pay 35,000 francs for PTA, but the lab is empty. Okay, where? Please send us more information where you paid these amounts, so we are going to discuss them. I'm sure maybe Wednesday we are going to revisit this topic. Good evening, Mr. Leo. I oppose the payment of PTA in private schools because when they fall, only proprietors own the buildings, whereas the public build most of them. Chair Fritz is writing from Tico. Evening to all of you in the studio. It's Linda from Bamenda. PTA fee in Government Technical School Bamenda and Quen, where I school, is 20,000 francs for old students and 25,000 francs for new students. Good evening to you. Hi, Mr. Leo. To all in the studio from Mr. Mbong in Boya. Mr. Leo, I wish a school proprietor and a PTA official were invited for the program tonight to come defend themselves, because all of those school proprietors are selfish exploiters of teachers and parents, but the blame goes to the government, who's supposed to put effective checks on these big stomach proprietors. Actually, I made that effort. The excuse was that today is back to school and that they were busy preparing for the opening. Good evening to you guys. I'm Kini from Bamenda. Very interested topic, but why now that parents have suffered in paying the money? Why is it that this topic did not come before a school resumption when we know the kangaroo system we are living in? Okay. It's a lesson to the Anglophones. Okay, sure, I took that one already. The question is, what happened to the money that was paid for the first one? Another serious matter is the issue of passport making. My little cousin made a passport in May 2021, and up to now the passport is not yet out. When she went to verify, she was asked to just make this new one. Okay. Good evening, Mr. Kum and the panelists. For registration every year is normal. For example, take a case of a meeting which ends at the end of the year. You are entitled to register 500 francs just to ensure your membership, but the problem here is increasing fee despite the crisis affecting the 2 English regions. Pamela Daniels is writing from Limit. Pamela, I think that in associations you register once. What you pay every year is what they call the annual dues. It's different from the registration. You register with 500 and then you pay.
Enjoy the PTA presidents.
Okay. Good evening. I am happy with this program. I have been wanting to raise an alarm on this, Mr. Elvis. God will bless you with the good work you have been doing. Please, we should take note of the principle of GBHS Chang and Sancho. They do take so much bribe. Okay. We pray they change. Good evening, Mr. Leo. Your program is good. It's Lola writing from Yaoundé. This one says that they should show their women. Okay. You say school is calm. Okay. Good evening, Mr. Leo. I love the topic for today, and if one of these days we can equally look into the problem of constant change of textbooks, I will be grateful. Good evening. Love the topic. Okay. Yes, but it is also part of the discussions for this evening, though we may not have time. That is why I'm saying that we are going to continue the discussions on Wednesday, especially hoping that you are going to be sharing with us how much you have been paying to some of these principals and the like. Good evening, Mr. Liu. The bribery and extortion is not only with PTA fees. I remember I paid some extra thousands during GC registration, which was never stated on the registration form. Mr. Sanji is writing from Menda. Good evening, Mr. Liu. I respect Mr. Maih Jarvis' point. He speaks the mind of many private institutes. He's a sophist. Okay, good evening. Raul, good evening to you. Glad to know that you're watching. Good evening, Mr. Liu. The topic of today should extend throughout the week. My man there said it. The government should give the base from that their kangaroo one for the basic salary of a Cameroonian. Those at the hem can their children use 35,000 francs per month as salary, given that there is the rents, the work, effort, and efficiency we, the private staff, put in the nation. Education is okay. Mr. Abiache Samuel Imam is writing from Douala. Yep. Now I want us to look at what we have as books. Someone just rates it. Madam Jacqueline, she's watching from Bomenda. Almost every year we have new textbooks. A child in class 3 has to grapple with over 14 subjects. How do we understand this?
Well, you know that the topic itself is as good as the issue of the PTA. Mm-hmm. Because when you see a kangaroo system that has lost alignment, it functions in a disorder manner. We will say these things today and tomorrow, and they will still continue. Now you realize that even in all of this, you still have schools that, even away from the book list, they institute their own book list in addition. That one is very clear. Probably they tell you that, especially for mission schools, are very good at that. They go to the education board, Reverend Father this wrote this school, this book, or this teacher in this mission wrote this book, and they tell you that even away from the one that has been sent by the ministry, all children within this school, whether it's Baptist school or Catholic school or Presbyterian school, you have to get that. And they impose on parents and it goes through. So the harmonization aspect of putting checks and balances is completely absent. Just like an anecdote to add, that we talk about 4 ministries for education, there are more than 4. Because Youth Affairs runs Youth Empowerment Center, which is education. Women's Affairs, they run Women's Empowerment Center, that they do with education of sewing and all the like. Employment and vocational training, they also run those schools, employment vocational centers. So, in fact, the country is confused. All those in Yaoundé that have expired in ideas. Now, but the main issue I'm saying here is that if you look at the way the issues operate, we have some worries that cut across. For example, you realize that the state, those who come after the state to put in place education as facilities, are supposed to accompany the state. For example, the mission schools, for example, are even supposed to make things much more accessible to some of Cameroonians who cannot or who want to go in for another maybe higher form of education. Now, what is the irony? If you go to Presbyterian Church, for example, education secretary for Presbyterian Church, hear me very well, because you know what I'm talking about. Now, because of the crisis, they said PSS, Womb, PSS, Kumbo, and the other ones that were supposed to operate with CPC Bali, because these areas are hostile, PSS, Bishop and all the like, they said no, let us open another PSS in the other areas where people have run to these areas. PCC, that's what you said, oh. Hear me very well. And they came now to open, you have PSS Bonamusadi and all these areas. Now, what we have for PSS Bonamusadi, PSS Bonamusadi, which is happening, and they have another one in Yaoundé. But what is the worst thing in it, Mr. Leo? That these mission schools that have opened other branches in the French-speaking areas are 2 and 3 times expensive than the original fare that was when the people were in the areas where they are. Which means that if they come to these areas, you have people who are paying close to 500 and 600,000 francs in these schools. Now, ask me how ironical it is. A man who was paying 350 or 300 in Kumbo, you say you are bringing it to Douala so that those who have moved from those areas here can benefit, and I put it at 500 to 600. Are you speaking with water in your mouth, or you are playing full? Now it's business.
And the Christians of the church are the ones to contribute the money to build those schools of which they don't even benefit from.
That is why somebody said in their text message, Mr. Leo, that PTA, if it's for the government, we can even understand.
mission schools and private are not supposed to take PTA because we have the university, Protestant University. I am a Presbyterian Christian. I'm sorry to hear that on the Presbyterian church because I don't like things that are bending. Because those who man the church, they are not very straight. I'm sorry to say that, Mr. Leo. I take responsibility.
Yeah, but that's not
now,
that's not
no, we are looking at is education in general, Mr. Leo.
Yeah, but why,
our education it affects these areas.
Yeah, but why do you target a
he's talking about it's an example, Mr. Leo. I'm talking about what I master. I cannot tell you what I don't master. I'm a Presbyterian Christian. If I tell you that when we're putting up Protestant University, all men were paying 5,000 francs, women were paying 3,000 francs. Means that you were shareholders. And then I'm a shareholder already. Around the school fees was ranging from 650,000 francs to above $1 million. Now look at the whole issue. I contribute in building a school. You give me exorbitant fee. At the same time, you tell me that I'm the owner of I'm part of the school. You see the irony. Now look at where we are, Mr. Leo. If you look at all of what we are explaining here, you realize that all these fee issues, with all these issues of managing of schools and whatever, tells you that the government is supposed to come in if the government business, because all those missions are business enterprises now. If you are poor, you cannot go to a mission school. I'm very sorry to say that. I don't know whether that's how Jesus made the kingdom of God to be. If you are poor, you cannot go to mission school. Some of us were at CPC Bali. We're paying 250. It climbed to 300. It climbed to 350. And we're still paying before we left CPC Bali. I'm pitying even these ones here that in the midst of crisis that education is supposed to stay. For those who are IDPs from these schools, please pay by 200. The church can contribute and complete. No, you come and pay as if you are going to attend school in Luxembourg or in Holland. These are the issues we find here because at the end of it, Mr. Lihu, we start blaming the government when the government itself too has its own blame. But those who man these institutions, private, mission, are now business persons of the first order. Spirituality is no longer in those areas. They are now strictly business persons. If you don't have money, don't dream going to a boarding school. Okay. Don't dream. Don't dream to go there.
This is a receipt of the person who said he paid 32,000 francs, but it was issued a receipt of 7,000 francs, 7,500 francs CFA for GBHS Limbe, and yes.
What's the receipt saying there?
7,500.
What he paid above?
He says he paid.
We'll get to those principles.
He says he paid 32,000 francs in the school. Yeah.
You raised an issue about why the constant change of textbook within our secondary schools. I believe it's coming because our educational system train more of theoretical reviewer than more of practical. Because you see that we've sent a lot of people out there who don't have job in itself. Now the only way that we can get these people get jobs is to get them enrolled in writing of textbooks and the rest and the rest and the rest, because you will bear with us that most of these textbooks are written by teachers, and the teaching profession in Cameroon is the most crowded profession as we speak right now, where everybody who graduates from the university without having job automatically apply as a teacher. It's the first thing that they do. I once applied. I have not an exception to that rule. Before I had a job, I once applied to 6 of schools in Maih when I graduated. At that point in time, just imagine the number of students who are graduating from the University of Maih, reading law, women and gender, all this other geography and the rest. Now, this inundation, now when they have graduated, at the end of the day, they are forced to go and do masters and to come and write textbooks. Now, you're not writing these books to keep on the shelves. You're writing the books, the theoretical books, is for people to read. So you are forced now to meet these school institutions, these school head teachers and principals, say, hey, this is a commission. And if you can sell this book by this amount, you have 2,000 per copy, and I have 2,500 per copy. So it automatically gives that principal a simple calculation. We have, let's say, 200 students in this school that are within from 4, from 5, who may need this book. This 200 will force it on them. 200 times 2,000 per copy. By default, he or she knows that he has 400,000 francs in his coffers, and it's the same book that has the same information as the book that they have been using. So so in all of this, you see that the reason is because our educational system had trained more people to read and write than to practice on hands-on education.
Is it not more because of money that people come up with books?
No, Mr. Elliot, it's not only because of money. See, let me know. I know before then. How do you?
Is it not because publishers come up with new books?
No, Mr. Elliot, how do you clamor somebody who have graduated from university without having a job and having knowledge in his head and doing research, they will keep writing books every day and writing books. So when they keep writing these books, they have the other ways now to get these books used.
Yeah, but who is approving and adding them to the book list?
Now it comes now to the corruption. I'm talking about the aspect of.
No, you can please let me take a few messages. Mr. Leo, Mr. Kangaroo is very right. This thing happens right in the Catholic school. Catholic schools pay 600,000 francs for fees, and yet teachers are not paid their salaries in the name of crisis. Violet is writing from Boya. I'm really impressed with your contribution of today. Okay. Good evening to you. No, I took that one already. Good evening, Mr. Leo. If we have outspoken Cameroonians like the kangaroo man, the corrupt countrymen will certainly sit up. John from Mukunda, he says encouragement. Thank you very much, John, writing from Mukunda. Mr. Prince Ndiwum, writing from Sweden, says, good evening, Mr. Liu and the panelists. To me, all the extortion in the education sector is a well-organized mafia by the government. Those scammed resources, monies moved from the bottom to hierarchy. If the government wants to harmonize the system, she will do that within the twinkle of an eye. Okay, you see, I paid 30,000 francs last month in Bamenda prior to the acceptance of my boy at GBHS, Bamendankwe. Okay, yes, so these are examples where people are paying even right out there. Good evening, Mr. Liu. Please, I need the number of the kangaroo man. Greetings to all your panelists. Stanley Bright, writing from Bamenda. Can you just request for that number after the program? Hello, Mr. Liu. I'm so much impressed with your today's program. Mr. Liu, you can't imagine, about a week ago, I went to GTC Kumba to seek for an admission for my son in building and construction department. I was being told it is full. Behold, my neighbor's son went there later for the same thing, and the son was taken in the same Form 1 building and construction department. So I am Clement, writing from Kumba. Yes. Good evening, Mr. Liu. I don't think money should be used to confirm whether a child will be returning or not. Registration for all students is a scam. Normally, whoever tips the minister well is appointed principal or head teacher, or to keep the position, so you have to tip constantly well. So back to school campaign by principals and education heads in the region, like subdivisional, divisional and regional delegates, is advert for good business. Okay, Tiku Felix is writing from Boya, but many persons are complaining. Are we not suffering because we are not also denouncing? For example, 10 persons are not very happy that they were asked to pay these amounts. Why not come out publicly and denounce that this principal is asking for this, and so that this thing is brought to the public?
Mr. Leo, I think I will add my voice to those who have chosen your platform this evening to start the denunciation. You know, we are in a country that is very complex. I am a principal. I have a friend who is an adjutant chef. You denounce me in a quarter, I create a motive over your name. The next 24 hours you are behind bars.
Yeah, but you could denounce without necessarily.
Mr. Leo, there's always victimization. Yeah. There's always victimization.
There's always.
And you see, what I am saying, and I'm still saying, is that collective voices sends a message more than voices that are groaning in silence. Because these people, if they never had the opportunity this night to be watching my media prime, they'll be groaning in silence. But I think if they can collectively come out and cry for the betterment of their children, Mr. Leo, it will be heard. There will be. I know that we are dealing with a government that has long lost touch with shame. But at one point, there are certain things that should be denounced. You see, what we are even talking about, there's something here that should not escape my mind. If you look at the way schools function in Cameroon, you will agree with me that we don't ever have public schools, private schools. Because even the public schools ends up only in the hands of our parents. the government looks at them and comes in as if government only gives subventions to these schools, because government has very little or no attention to these schools. That's why I said the government has no willingness, no wish to update things. Mr. Liu, talking about the book syndrome. Maih started on a very good footing, even though he faltered along the line. I want to tell you that and you go through the books, you'll be surprised. Scanty insight. Why? There are individuals in Ewane who have partners with the Ministry of Education to produce books. You will now discover that what obtains in the syllabuses and in the content of our education instead come from people who write private, and they are not. Let me just cite you. Go to class 6. You look at foundation mathematics, it is empty. But when you turn now, you look at somebody like Ngasu, Emmanuel, Beto, you discover that it is very rich. When the government imposes it, you discover that each school has 2 book lists. The official book list coming from the government and the school book list. This time in partnership with the publishers and the principals and the directors of these schools. Behold, they eat very fat from it, because once you present your book list to the publisher with his books inside, the amount begins from 50,000, and that is what we have been denouncing every day. What is stopping the government, Mr. Liu, to carefully select the books that are good for our educational system and put them on the list? So you see that at the head of this corruption, the government tops the chart, because the government officials that allow scanty books to go into the school program, which at the end of the day, even the official examination does not come out from those books. You see that they are the ones setting the pace for such corruption. I remember in 2009, there was a literature book that was removed, The Crown of Thorns, by Linus T. Asong. And almost everybody cried. Even the teacher syndicate cried. But it never came back. Why? At the end of the day, we heard the new book that replaced The Crown of Thorns was somebody who had a link with the then Minister of Secondary Education. And the book went into force. Do you know that immediately the minister left, the book also disappeared from the book list?
Okay, Mr. Liu, the textbooks forced on students, it's really a call for concern. My daughter was constantly sent out of class for not buying a particular teacher's book. A teacher would say it clearly: if you don't buy his book, don't attend his class. Imagine you pay fee over 80,000 francs and your daughter is still sent out of class all the time for not having a teacher's book. Sometimes the books is just few pages sold for 2,000 francs above, and about 7 teachers impose this. Yes. Good evening, Mr. Liu. Is Joyce writing from Mutengen? I salute the kangaroo man. He shall live long to continue speaking the truth. God bless you, the kangaroo man. Okay. Evening, Mr. Liu. That's my PTA receipt, which was cancelled to 10,000 to 20,000 just because I came late. Okay. John is writing from Limbe. Good evening to you, John. But I think we should denounce this. Good evening, Mr. Liu. Basic education head teachers eat class teachers' incentives, especially head teachers in FACO division. We plead with the inspectors to address this situation in upcoming seminars and not only ask teachers to pay seminar dues. Mr. Sumilong is writing from Ikuna. Good evening to you. Hello, good evening to pioneer persons in the studio. There is no volume when my kangaroo man is talking. Put your technicians in order. Please enjoy your program live from Bafmeng. Thanks. Okay. Glad to know you're also watching from Bafman. Good evening, Mr. Liu. Please, I just wish to ask the Kangaroo Man if schools have effectively resumed in Momo Division, which is my region of origin. I'm Anum Ferdinand from Grand Angad Douala. Okay. Good evening, Mr. Liu. I think the only solution to corruption is the digital system. If they can find admission online and pay through the bank, then take the receipt to the school, all this corruption will stop. There is no advanced country in this modern era where the government money is being given through officials. Albert is writing from Kumba. Good evening, Mr. Liu. I'm a PTA president in one of the schools in Manjo subdivision, and you could not imagine that the PTA is a sole proprietor business of the headmaster, as he expends all the PTA money without the knowledge of any PTA school member. And he also collects 3,000 francs as examination fees for all pupils, and registration for first school and common entrance is 16,000 francs for class 6 pupils. Ngalame writing, can you call me tomorrow, Mr. Ngalame? Let's talk about this, please. I'll still take a few messages before. Good evening, Mr. Liu. President Paul Biya granted free education for primary schools, but some people still collect money for the free education. His Excellency Paul Biya will forever remain the best president in Africa. Can be promised. Militant of FSNC, Northwest, okay? Good evening, Mr. Liu and Panelists. Education today is based on having a certificate and not a professional skill, thereby rendering the citizens an empty-headed person in the field, especially for the... Okay, Simon is writing from Suza. Mr. Liu, the Kangaroo Man is factual because to build, every Christian contributes right down to Operation 100 francs, but at the end, the mission set fees the contributors to build cannot pay. In the name of God. Fritz is writing from Tico. Good evening, Mr. Liu. Talking about fees, right northwest in Bamenda, Sacred Heart College, just the primary section last year was 40,000 francs. This year it is 60,000. Alain is writing from Bamenda. Good evening, Mr. Liu. I'm called Danielita from Limbe. I'm so happy that school starts again tomorrow. Okay, tomorrow is Tuesday. Now, we are going to say just a word there for the second topic that was planned for today, because on Wednesday we are certainly going to be revisiting this topic. Your reaction to the banning of a church in Limbe? No, in Bali.
Yes, I think it is not correct, because if we should ban the church because of people were killed in the church, it makes us not different from those who killed people in the church. If we say we are not the ones who killed people in the church. I think the Bible says in Psalms 105 verse 10, something of that nature, that touch not my anointed and do my prophet no harm. If you should go and touch a church, because we know in war zones, churches, hospitals and schools are no-go areas for the fighters, even from the government or from the terrorists. You don't go to kill people in the church. If somebody runs to a church or to a hospital or to a school, you are not supposed to go there, because during wars, schools are still ongoing. So I think that condemning an institution like a school, maybe or a church or a hospital because of people were killed there, I think is not reasonable enough, because we have been complaining that the activities of the Doctors Without Borders was stopped in the north and the southwest, and people suffered a lot, and yet we want to stop the churches that is helping to calm hearts down. And we say that a church should close and a particular man should answer. I don't think that it is a good decision that whosoever that has taken it has taken. It's not a good decision at all. Okay.
Yes, the Kangaroo Man. Why should the church be targeted if some persons committed some acts? Why should the church pay for that?
Well, I think that's where I am not very comfortable with that, especially for the very fact that as I said, I'm a Presbyterian Christian. I schooled in CPC Bali. I know about the history of Presbyterian Church in Tamfu. and about how the Basel mission handed over officially to Presbyterian Church in Cameroon, there in Bali. So it's the citadel of the Presbyterian Church, which does not really keep me very comfortable. But then, while I have been worrying, I've been really greatly disturbed on this, I have been able to learn one lesson in it that all those man structures which are supposed to make use of journalists. Because when you make use of journalists, there's what they call press secretary, communication officer. Now, we have a situation in Cameroon whereby everybody thinks that you can talk because when you talk, you are communicating. But people don't know that there are people, you get them experts when things are critical. Now, you want to come out with the communique. You call a journalist who is professional. Please look at what I want to present and see
but no
if it suits.
No communique has been issued so far.
No, that's what I'm saying. I'm saying that communique has not been issued so far, not so. But based on the first communique that was issued shortly after the incident took place, you understand? Now, that is where you see the misinterpretation is taking place. Based on the first communique, after that incident that the moderator sent out an official communique, you understand? That's where the misinterpretation began.
Okay.
But when I went through that his communique, I'm not hiding it because we have the tendency that everybody who is a boss can communicate at will. But these are the areas. Communication at the war zone is different from communication when there is peace. Now, that's why I said that all in all, we have misinterpretation of things along the line. Whereas, I think that if we are taking some time, as those that man the PCC at that point in time, to put in place some measures of communication, I am sure X or B will not be misinterpreted because there's a misunderstanding somewhere along the line.
Should the church
which
be
goes.
banned? Should the church be
You are not
banned?
still getting Mr. Leo. I have said I don't support banning.
Okay.
But I'm saying that we must be able, Mr. Leo, I as an individual, I assess church is not supposed to be banned. But what caused a factor is what causes the analysis to be complete. If I slap you, what caused it? Did you anger me? If not, we look at those parameters. So something went wrong somewhere that caused another wrong.
Yeah, Ndiwum, some persons are raising this issue that schools are being banned. Now, moving over to churches, is it not also exaggerating?
Well, I think even if we were having a good fight and we start fighting God, then it means that the fight is doomed to fail. Because even if I'm not a church goer, I believe that there is God in church. And wherever 2 or 3 persons gather in the name of God, there is God there. So if you ban the house, the house of God, you ban God in your life. So I want to think that in as much as I know we have all sinned and fallen short the glory of God, we need to rethink. We need to rethink because this is an abomination. We should have the courage to say it. You cannot fight God. God is a spirit. And it is that same spirit that is making you to think that you can liberate people. And if you can liberate people by enslaving them the more, then I begin to wonder what becomes of us if finally one day you are the one in control. There are some decisions that when we have to take them with caution. And this also goes to the moderator of the PCC. When you are a servant of God, you speak the language of truth, peace, and in love. You don't speak because of fear of favor. Because as a servant of God, the only fear should be the fear of God, not the fear of people.
Okay.
At one point, his language has not been a calling language for peace, Mr. Leo. We must be honest. And to our government forces, I think Amber Boys were supposed to learn good examples from them, that hospitals, churches are no-go areas even during the times of war. I don't even know what we are fighting for. Okay.
Some people see in this manipulative hands here who are working against the moderator of the PCC.
Yeah, what is happening as far as the church ban is concerned is not, we should not just look at it from the aspect of the Amber struggle. It's an internal politics tool that's playing within the Presbyterian Church. Remember that people have passed behind this to go and push their agenda. Why are they calling for the moderator to resign and the pastor to resign? This is not just the first incident where we've seen attack in the church and where names are not called. For Reverend Father Nugik Alexander was killed. names were not called. Even when we were at the funeral, we were told that the killers of Father Sop are here, but the names were not called. But these fingers were pointed to A pointed fingers to B, and nothing happened as far as the banning of the Catholic Church is concerned. We were at the peak of the crisis, but at the time. But when you look at this situation now, it tells you that there is someone, in fact, there is a cabal in PCC that is funding or fueling divide or struggling to destabilize the PCC because they hate Right Reverend Fonka or they hate his leadership. He may not be a saint, but however, I remember the Bible tells us that in Romans chapter 13 verse 1 that leaders are appointed by God, and also we should understand for those who allow this divide, those pushing this divide to come and use their struggle that they call a God-ordained struggle to fight against God, to understand that if you have an interest of the people, you should not take such a decision. Romans chapter 13 verses 5 says, "My son, if thou is afflicted, let him pray." Where would these people pray to? They go to church to pray. And even in Luke chapter 18 verse 1 say, "Men ought to pray." And where will these people go to? Will these people go to church to pray? And if you are saying that you are fighting a God-ordained struggle, then the church should be the citadel where you should protect and ensure security of the church, not banning the church. Banning the church, you are concluding that it is not a God-ordained struggle. And secondly, you should not allow people within the PCC to come and use your fight and for a divide. Then you are missing the target. You are no longer fighting, you are fighting money. So I think we should keep away emotions. Let's be realistic here. The church in itself, the church is one, the church is holy, the church is apostolic. The church in itself, the coming together of people in assembly help. The church play, they just look at the church, Mr. Lou, on one angle. The church play several roles as far as being in Bali is concerned. Philanthropic. Second, calming the minds of people. Third, reducing the level of divide among people and giving the people hope. Giving hope to the hopeless. Now, if you are banning this church, the health service that they provide in itself is one. The philanthropic service that they provide, giving people, sometimes they give donation to internal displays, is banned. The educational service, you say you don't even want it again. You are coming out to even the healing of minds and hearts of people who have lost hope. Because when they go to Sunday, they praise God, they sing, their hearts are lifted up, and they buy their way to heaven. And you are banning this. Come on, let's be realistic. And Ndiwum said, let's be able to call a spade a spade. This is a very bad move to ban the church, and those who are doing this should know that a man of God may be fake, but the anointing on his head is not fake. Because if a man of God is ordained by God, that man of God carry the anointing. So be careful where you tread.
Okay. Mr. Liu, because Mukunda asks high school fees, but the lab and computer are empty. Okay. Good evening, Mr. Liu. Why is it that some teachers ask students to buy Android phones so that they can do research, whereas not all parents can afford it for their children? And by the way, is it not even good for a child to have a phone because it distracts? Okay, it's not good. It distracts them. Good evening, Liu. Even though the act is wrong, but the church is lying about the issue, how can the pastor say he does not know who shot him? Alain is writing from Bomenda. You are in Bomenda, so you know who shot. Good evening, Mr. Liu, and everyone in the panel. I love your programs. I think separatist fighters have a good reasons to ban. Okay. If not, why did the separatists not just ban all the churches in Bali? Triview, writing from Chang. It happened only in the Presbyterian church. Not all the churches were attacked. Good evening, Mr. Liu. I'm called Danielita from Lima. I want to go to school again. Yes, you start school tomorrow. Good evening, Mr. Liu. Principals are far better than chief examiners who collect up to 20,000 at the GCA marking center from examiners to fill their stomach. If not, they threaten to write a bad report against you. How do we then expect corruption to stop in Cameroon? Good evening to you, Mr. Liu. I love your today's program. It's Roland from Mbengwi. I salute the kangaroo man. It's the same thing that has happened sometime in GBHS, Bamenda, 5,000 for computer classes, but we don't go to the labs. Good evening, Mr. Liu. I want to propose a PTA accounting software system that I developed. It's currently being used by 2 schools in the Northwest region. For Emmanuel from Upstation, Bamenda, this one says, I wish we had our institutions functional back. It sounds to me as if we are talking about schools in a different country. I doubt if any staff or students can still identify the main entrance into GBHS Center because of bushes. Further want to ask the economic importance of this wonderful program to powers that be. Nestor Tani, writing from Bamenda. Okay, God bless you, Kangaroo. More grace to you, able for speaking the truth. Good evening, Leo. Is Frank from Tico, the man with the glasses, is very correct. Okay, now we are out of time. Except you, anybody else? One last word?
Yes, my last word is that we spoke here about
denouncing these malpractices in schools. I think I will join my voice to that of the Kangaroo man. We have to go to the field, gather information, and make sure that even if it is the right petitions for people to sign, and then we take it to the authorities that be. By the time they don't act, then we will come here and start denouncing those authorities to make people know that they are the ones promoting such activities in schools. So that's my last word. I greet all the millions of televiewers who are watching us this evening.
Okay, I want to thank you all for watching. Sorry for there's something we're supposed to do that we've not done today, but we're going to catch up tomorrow. The maker, tomorrow we're going to have it twice. Don't Thank you for coming, Ndiwum.
Thank you very much, Mr. Leo. It's always a pleasure.
Okay, thank you too.
Well, thank you very much. Please get to our Facebook page, Fah Elvis Tayong, get to Mr. Leo. Just call me. I have enough energy to move around all the regions. I mean, 3 regions, Northwest, Southwest, Littoral, specifically Mungo and Vuri. Well, thank you very much, Mr. Leo. And I think that we will be finding some time to talk because, you know, Kumba too, also as usual, my town was boiling. We have another chief who was crowned, Chief of Kumba. That is Prince Mukete Emmanuel on Saturday with the traditional ceremony with Juju and all the like. So it's controversial. The investigation is ongoing. And now we have 2 chiefs present as per the crowning ceremony on Saturday. Chief Mukete Emmanuel as the title goes. And then we have the one who was put in place by Fonfi Mukete. So the controversy is on, but we'll investigate all that and get back to all of you.
That's not the topic for today, yes.
Thank you for calling me in, and special good evening to the faculty and staff of the Catholic University Institute of Boya who are focusing on admission at this moment, especially to the Chief Shepherd, His Lordship Michael Bibi, and the President of the institution, who happens to be Professor Victor Julius Ngo.
Is it a cabal that asked him to tell? Okay, we want to thank you all for watching the program. Thank you, the production team. Stay blessed. Bye-bye.